a Heroes Welcome podcast. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of a Heroes Welcome podcast. I'm Maria, and I'm here with my co-host.
That's me, Liliana, and we're here with a special guest. Jessica, how will you like to introduce yourself?
I mean, you just said Jessica, so I'm Jessica Kruckeberg. I mean, like you said about all the letters after your name, okay, so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, AMFT approved supervisor, certified sex therapist. I forget all what the letters mean. Yeah, so those are all my letters. And I have a private practice.
And where is your private practice?
Down in Centennial, Colorado, and I specialize in working with people with chronic pelvic pain, but not just pelvic pain, chronic pain, I should say, and menstrual dysfunction, now autoimmune diseases. I feel like I'm now getting a specialty in neurodivergency because I see that a lot. So autism and ADHD.
Yeah.
And then how all those things coalesce in one person.
Excellent. And that's kind of where we're headed for our chat today, right? We're going to talk a little bit specifically about menstrual cycle function, or the theory that it can function healthily,
Yeah, right.
and the dysfunction and what clinicians in general need to know.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, and we're all MFTs, so I feel like we're all going to just like nod our heads and be like, yeah, because this is part of the system, right? So when we view I have a problem when we view depression and anxiety as the diagnosis full stop rather than the symptom, and how when we miss talking to our clients about the menstrual cycle. And even if they don't have a menstrual cycle, maybe they're on birth control, maybe they're postmenopausal or pregnant, right? I'm thinking of all the reasons somebody might not have with a uterus might not have a menstrual cycle. Those are still conversations we have to have because those are impacting our clients. Mm-hmm. The hormones are impacting how our clients view the world, interpret the world, experience the world.
I love that. So for everyone who's out there listening, I just want you to know that I was very privileged to attend one of Jessica's presentation, and my mind just kept like blowing off. And then someone asked Jessica, but what about when you're working with teenagers? And I was like, yes, most of us were working with females who are preteens and teens, and their cycle is coming earlier and earlier. How come we don't have access to this information so that we don't dismiss it into anxiety or depression when their hormones are affecting them, how they perceive the world?
Right. I mean, I think we're just dismissing women in general, not just teenage women, right? Like that this is just anxiety or depression.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for saying that and bringing it in the room.
For all our listeners, Maria and I tend to talk a lot about how when we go to the ER, we get dismissed quite often into having panic attacks or just anxiety. And for me, that I have the privilege of knowing Jessica, is reaching out to Jessica and it's like, this is what's happening. And for her to organize it in order for me to advocate for myself. So thank you for all the videos that you have sent me so that I can learn about my body and I can advocate in a different way. But how can we empower others who do not have access to you the way that I do?
Mm-hmm. Right? Oh, because I think too, I was watching a YouTube video, which I did send you, Liliana, earlier today. And the person was talking about having to manage ourselves. I don't love the way she phrased that, but when she explained what she meant, I was like, okay, I can get behind it. But we can't rely on doctors to manage what our experience is and to ask the right questions and have the full experience. And so we need to do the research, we need to do the readings. And I think as clinicians, that's where we can support our clients, because we see our clients way more frequently than their medical providers. Right.
Sure.
And to help them understand and not perpetuate the societal and medical system gaslighting that this isn't worth talking about, right? Whatever this is, it could be their pain, it could be the menstrual cycle, it could be, their gut health, right? I see so many people go, I don't think this is right. I think something is wrong, but then that symptom is dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it when they're like, but your labs look fine.
Right? Labs always look fine. Or they're like, especially with hormones, they're like, your estrogen level's normal. You tested it in this one period, like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why aren't we in this day and age talking about this more often? Why are we still having this kind of sexual, like, it's still taboo? Why is it that we're not having this information, not just for our own health, but like to then be able to pass this along to our female presenting clients?
I mean, one, our society doesn't like talking about periods.
Why?
Right? Because we're told they're like these, it's a secret, right? We're told even, right, when you carry a tampon to the bathroom, you hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're told it's dirty. We're told it's messy. We're told it's inconvenient, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge pitch for birth control, is like, periods inconvenient? Here, take continuous birth control, never have one. And don't get me wrong, I can get behind that, for a moment, but they're inconvenient and they tell so much, right? This like fifth vital sign. And then I think as therapists and clinicians, the theories we practice, the trainings we get don't incorporate it.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, I'm going to throw EFT under the bus for a second, but right, EFT is like, okay, this is what, you're showing up. It's an attachment style. It's an attachment style. I'm like, yeah, but what about if you're, like in the luteal phase and you just don't want to be touched?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, or there's a menstrual cycle happening too. So many things. So yeah, I think we're not taught to do it.
Yeah, no, and I love that there can be, multiple answers that could be correct for the same question.
Yes.
Because I think that's the other thing is like you get told, this is it, period. End of sentence. We are not going to discuss this further. There is no other options to look at, regardless, depending on like what the situation is. But yeah, I think it's still considered very dirty and taboo. And it's like, what it's happening to half the population.
Yeah.
It's happening to
right
half
now,
of us.
there's women walking around menstruating. Like, shocking.
If you're listening to this doing grocery shopping, it's probably either you or the woman next to you in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
But so for all of us who are working with these clients, and I love that you mentioned it specifically a model, because I think all models are so messed up not talking about this, especially when we're talking from an attachment perspective. So if you're working with couples, if you're working with any female presenting, right? Like, what is it that we need to ask? I love how EMDR now is asking us, do not go to depression automatically. Can we go and find out if they have any deficiencies in their bodies? Can we rule those out before you go here? And there's other models who are asking us already, are you asking these questions? We have not gone to the level of becoming aware in regards to menstrual cycle, which this is why I love having conversations with you. And that's why I also think everyone else needs to know about you. It cannot just be me or Maria. But even in your training, when you were talking about the role of estrogen, and I was like, hold on, what? And I remember I was not writing fast enough when you were talking about it, because I was like, holy shit, I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, estrogen's a fantastic hormone.
Yes, it is.
And I mean, to go back to your question, what do we need to be asking clients? My first question is, are you on birth control and how long have you been there? Because birth control doesn't give us estrogen. Even if it is the dual one where it does have estrogen, it's not chemically identical to the body's estrogen. And there's been study after study after study outside of the United States about how birth control contributes to anxiety and depression. Like there's a strong connection.
Yeah.
Those studies aren't in the US because we're like, no, 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 I don't want to hear it. But
what? No.
right. And so to me, again, like, said, don't go straight to depression or anxiety. Yeah, if someone's on birth control, I'm not going to be like, yes, you have anxiety until they're off birth control for like 6 months and I can see how they show up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even I share with you right now that I'm premenopausal. Yes, all of you who are listening, this is exactly what's happening in my body. Guess what? The first attempt to help me with all these night sweats and my face turning red everywhere I go. Thank you for pointing it out in pictures. What is happening now is that they are prescribing me a combination of depression and anxiety pills to hit that part of the brain, so that I can have some sleep, so that I'm not waking up. But we're even using those pills to help me with this, which is something that not everyone is talking about it either, because there's no awareness. People are in shock when I share that piece.
Mm-hmm. And then those same pills kill your sex drive. And then you show back up in my office going, we have mismatched like sex drives. Like, no, you don't. Like, you're on anti-anxiety because you've been on birth control for a decade, and let's start peeling back those layers.
Yeah.
So well, and I think it fits the conversation in terms of like the symptoms, the diagnoses that show up in the clinician's office are symptoms of a probably underlying biological concern or issue. Would you also agree, Jessica, that that's the case?
A lot of it, yes, especially like if we just look at the menstrual cycle. I mean, I'm looking at also people who are experiencing autoimmune diseases, neurodivergencies, like who are going, I don't think something's right, but no one believes me. And so even if it's not a dysfunction, even if the menstrual cycle is functioning exactly how it's supposed to function, it's still impacting our moods, it's impacting our cognitions, it's impacting our energy levels. So even a healthy person with not even an ounce of dysfunction is still being impacted by this.
Oh, I love that.
Right. And
we're supposed to function as though everything is normal.
Right. And there's capitalism for you.
Yeah.
That there's that system. And I think too, I get frustrated because the clients that end up in my office, 99% of them are referred by a medical provider. And I always I love those medical providers. I network with them. I talk to them a lot, but I have to take it with a grain of salt because I don't want to perpetuate that gaslighting and say, this is psychosomatic.
Yeah.
And, and I feel like a lot of our theories and a lot of the ways we practice perpetuate that.
Yeah.
Well, we work in that medical model.
Yes.
Right. So if you're working with insurance and needing reimbursement, then we are held to those standards for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that the larger conversation that we seem to be having more and more, Liliana, is that what we see as mental health, not always, we're not going to put an absolute on it, but more often than not, those diagnoses are actually symptoms of something else that's actually going on.
Yeah. So for everyone who's listening, especially in the last episodes, we're being actually talking more and more that clients are not coming to you because of depression. They're not coming to you because of anxiety. They're coming to you because the symptoms that they have with this. We have to use those labels if you're working with systems in order to get pay and justify services. But you are working with the whole individual, and that includes as Jessica is pointing out, if you're having a cycle, are you on birth control? What are you taking? How often are your blood levels are being tested? And again, I love how Jessica even started saying like, but in that moment when you were tested, these are the numbers. This is what they diagnosed you or not diagnosed you. And this is where most of us who are clients go on into something does not feel right. The expectation is that I function, but I have no energy, or I have no sex drive, or I feel like I'm going crazy. And to be minimized with what are your stressors? Tell me about your anxiety is a disservice to the client in front of you. And when you're working with systems, especially with couples, it's a disservice not sharing this with both in the session in order for the significant other to be attentive to this and learn about this. If you use EFT and we're working from an attachment lens, how are we going to use this information to bring them in and join in the person who's going through this? I wish all the listeners will see our faces right now.
Yeah, because we're all like, yep.
So where do we start, Jessica? Where do clinicians start? Where do women and people who love women start looking for this information, and perhaps like integrating it, or even just, I mean, we can talk a whole separate piece on advocacy, but like where do people start for this information? Because as all female presenting women here, this is not information that I had readily available to myself growing up or even well into my adulthood.
Right. I had to dig for this information and I'm still putting it together and I talk about it every day, all day. But it's, to me, step one is understanding the menstrual cycle and all the parts. And like I said, I talk about it every day. And so I started, even for my own clients, recording videos in which I break it down. So we're not having to talk about it in session. They can go see it, the video between sessions or before or their first session, so we can jump right in and understand and start tracking it. Right. Even if it's just something small, like, okay, what's my mood like on day 1? What's my mood like on day 14? Day 14 is the best day, right? Like right before you ovulate, everything is jiving. Like you have a sex drive, you feel confident, like you could take on the world, you're sleeping great, like it's delightful. But we're not all on day 14.
Damn it.
Damn, like we just need estrogen all the time. That is like the peak of estrogen, the peak of testosterone we get, peak of everything. So understanding that cycle. And so that if you're a clinician, you can ask your clients, I personally ask them on my intake, what medicines and medications and supplements are you on, including birth control? And I want to know how long they've been on birth control. I want to know why they're on birth control, because I always joke I have a love-hate relationship with birth control, right? Like birth control has a messy history and it's changed the world. It's changed economies by allowing women to contribute financially to the economy, and it's killing women. We know it's killing women. The Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine killed 6 people and they pulled it. And then we're killing hundreds of women with birth control and they're like, yeah, it's fine.
Because we're not talking about it. When you shared that, I was like, wait, what?
Yes. And so, just knowing that, I'm never going to tell my client, oh my God, your birth control could be killing you. Because I need to understand why they're using it so I can have empathy. And then when the time is right, or if the time is right, to say like, hey, could this be a contributing factor to your anxiety and depression symptoms? Could maybe, I don't know, until they get off of it and we can see.
Right.
And some of them are like, maybe, but I choose to stay on it. Okay.
At least having them have that awareness right? So that they can make a decision, right? Because, you know, you get the birth control packet, they give you that like long rolls out for miles, pieces of paper with all of the possible symptoms, side effects, blah, 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 contraindications. Nobody reads it. Nobody reads it. Nobody reads it. And it comes in like 8 languages now. Like, that's fantastic. But the conversation piece is also missing of like, here are the real risks and symptoms and side effects that you need to be aware of. And I know my own personal history, I was placed on birth control very young. Later being diagnosed with endometriosis. Like they're like, we're gonna put you on this and it'll stop all the things we don't need it to be doing. And then just like left for decades of like, stay on it. Stay on it.
Yeah. Because like there's like, you don't need to be doing this. Okay. But you were not a place in your life to understand what you were getting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, other than pain and terrible pain.
Yes.
But
yes, terrible pain. And that was not the solution, right? Like, and they tell you like this isn't a cure, right? Because endo doesn't have a cure right now. And like, so there's not a cure, but like this'll ease it up and it'll make it, you know, it'll make it so that you can still function.
Yeah.
Which thanks, but in the long run, it's also killing me. Probably should have been told that.
Right. And in the long run, how well are you functioning?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I do. I mean, we'll still see intakes of women coming in, even young adult women who are just like, oh yeah, I've been on this for like, you know, the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why? That's what I'm hearing from you is like, ask, well, why?
Yeah.
And
even if it was because of a heavy period, that's usually right. I was started on it as a teenager because of heavy period. And then you're talking to women in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, and you'd be like, but you haven't had a period at this age. What did it look like? Like, what would it look like if you got off of it? But they're terrified. They're terrified they'll have the period of their 17-year-old self.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, right, because I was for years without birth control, which was so fantastic for me. And I went without birth control having heavy periods because of other medical issues, but I still was able to function. It's not until we get to certain medical issues then you cannot function. Jessica had the privilege of seeing me in one of those flares where I couldn't walk. And she was so concerned. She's like, I'll walk you to your car. And she did, by the way. She walked me to my car. But again, we're not educated. And I'm thinking as a mental health therapist, if I'm not asking these questions to any female presenting in my office, if I'm not understanding how this is affecting them, and we continue in the medical model, just giving pills, giving diagnosis so they can get pill, this is not a service to our clients. Right. So what do we do when we have the messiness of a medical field who's here to be reactive and want to fix everything with surgery or a pill? Instead of being proactive, and this is where we come in. So how do we identify these issues and how do we help our clients? And then how do we help them so they can advocate knowing that it's a system that does not like to be corrected by a client?
You know, the phrase I find most helpful to clients is, I don't know. Because I don't know everything. And so when I say, like, I don't know if your depression is going to help when you stop birth control. I don't know if this birth control is going to help with your PMDD, right? I don't know. But I can keep track of how you're showing up in my office today. And then I'll compare it to how you show up in my office in a month. And I'll compare it to how you show up in my office in 90 days. Yeah. And so if we're going to jump off this cliff, I'll do it with you.
And you will. Like this
and I will.
You know, like, and you will.
It's the oldest daughter in me. Jumping off a cliff, so let's do it. And I think that's how we can help clients is like, let's just try it and I'll be here with you.
Yeah.
Because your family's too close to you to see the difference. Your doctors are too far away from you to see the difference.
Oh, beautiful.
I love that you can hold that space of in between with them.
Yeah. And that doesn't fall into any therapeutic model, right?
No.
Anything we've learned in school doesn't say, okay, this is how you do it. The closest I got, in sex therapy, we learned the implicit model is that permission.
Yeah.
Wow. I know Liliana shared that after attending that training that like more clinicians, not outside of being a sex therapist and going for that credential, need to be aware of this information and need to have access to this information. What is the best way for them to do that?
I mean, their own research. I keep going back to that. I think if you're somebody with a uterus, I think that's where it starts, is understanding your own experience. Because if you blow past that in order to try to help clients, then I don't know what. Like, then you're missing something. You're missing empathy. You're missing the ability to hold that space when you'd be like, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Right? I know what that feels like, when you hit the luteal phase and now all your energy and motivation for that project that you had 2-3 days ago is gone. And it gives them permission to have those feelings. And when I was sitting at the ASEC conference a couple weeks ago, and I was listening to a male sex therapist present about, it was a case conceptualization, and it was a cis female that the client, and I was like, and he would say something, I was like, what? No. Right. And so I think if you don't have a uterus, you really need to lean into the lived experiences. You need to be reading about them on Reddit. You need to be listening to family members who have these experiences. You need to be checking your friends when there's a joke about somebody being on their period and being moody. Right? By ignoring this piece, we are making women one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And we complain when we have characters on TV or characters in books of females that are one-dimensional. Yeah, like, unless they're talking about periods, they're one-dimensional. And so I think that's where it starts, is recognizing how much depth this experience adds to female lives.
Yeah. I love, first of all, I have never been speechless. So I'm like, oh my God, no one is going to recognize this. But two is, I truly believe that this is where they share experience. So if you're not female, asking these questions to family, to friends, to stop also with the jokes, because that's something that I had to talk in my home. Like, let's talk about this, because this does not add to me being able to be present with you, adds to the shame. And I don't want to carry that, adds to the guilt. And I don't want to carry that anymore. That's too heavy. That's another thing that I do not want to carry. So because of my relationship with you and all the videos that you're sending me, it's just a different awareness, right? But even the shared experience, because now I'm asking clients, now I'm asking even in couples, right? Like, tell me about this part. What is it that you know? What is it that you don't know? What is it that we minimize when this comes up? Even when in couples, especially, and even with families, when I'm working with teenagers and they go, they had an episode. No, now, for me, that's a trigger, because that was like an episode or a flare. There is a difference between that word. An episode is bothersome to you. A flare is something that we have no control and invites empathy to. Right? So even words have an impact, especially when you have a uterus. Like, we need more empathy, the empathy that you're talking about, Jessica. Which is, I love everything that you're saying here. And I truly believe that everyone who works with anyone who has a uterus needs to know. And how can they find out more about you? Because I feel like we need a part 2 from this. This is just not going to be enough. Everyone else, like, you would have seen like Jessica's face, like, wait, what? Yes, we're going to do a part 2. But how can they find about you, about your presentations, consultations that you can do for them? And I know you're a busy therapist. Like here in Colorado, for everyone who's listening, she has a waiting list. So all of us who are referring to Jessica, we're like telling our clients, and you're just gonna have to wait. Because there's not a lot therapists like you who has this specialty, who understands this, who's doing a lot of research, all the stuff that you're doing to help us understand that. Like, how can they contact you to learn more about? It's not just a menstrual cycle. Let's not diminish it with jokes or labels such as anxiety and depression. Let's actually go and understand this more. How can they get a hold of you for all of this?
I mean, my website's the easiest place, which is areasofgrowth.com. And I'm actually building out as we speak, like a platform for my videos. And so clients, will have access to them, but so will non-clients. And to be able to understand. So yeah, as those people, I call it the Disney World experience. So if you've ever sat in a queue in Disney World, right, they entertain you while you're in the queue.
Yeah.
So that you don't realize you've been standing there for 2 hours. And so I was like, okay, how do I entertain people in my queue and keep them motivated and optimistic? And so I came up with this idea of creating kind of like a membership, maybe, I guess, is the best example, where there's videos, there's going to be PDFs that are downloadable, things like that. I still have to flesh it out a little bit, but I'm recording those videos every week and trying to get them ready to go. I needed like a good chunk of them before it went live, so hopefully sooner than later.
I love that. And I love that you're offering that information to those in waiting as well, because I think that's the other piece, right? Like, we're talking about menstrual cycles. They're going to happen every 28 days. And so being able to give them something to listen to and look at and consider while waiting for a much needed, but also like you're going to have a wait list because you're doing what you're doing. I think that's phenomenal. What about clinicians who might want to follow a similar path as you and be able to offer similar information to their clients? What does that look like?
So I'm still also trying to do a version of this for providers. So not just mental health providers, but also medical providers, because a lot of my PTs don't know the mental health side. And it's not like the piece that they're missing isn't this dramatic piece. It could be a small thing they can bring into their treatment rooms. And so I'm hoping to arm them with that. But I mean, I encourage people to email me. Like, if you have a question, I'm approachable. Right. I always joke with my students, because I have a private practice and people want to ask me about private practice, or people want to ask me about women's sexual health. It's like, if you will buy me a hot chocolate, I will talk to you for an hour. And yeah, I have things in place if you want something more formal, like a true advisory position. Yeah, there's information on my website, but I'm cheap. I want a good hot chocolate.
She really means good. It's not like,
yeah, and I will get picky if it's not. I don't care if it's 95 degrees outside.
So we'll include her ideal hot chocolate list with her contact information so that you're well prepared. Well prepared. But I appreciate that, because I think that's the other thing that we were talking about before, was like there's not a lot of crossover in terms of information sharing. Not within our own mental health, our subsections, but let alone mental health to physical health providers.
Right.
I know when we're, told to collaborate, we send the ROI, and it's like, we're lucky if we get a response back of like, received it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I want more and more people to hear about this topic. And there's not a lot of you, like literally, there's not a lot, like you, Jessica. But I'm thinking, like, if you're working with trauma, if you're anyone who has uterus, if you're working with a teenager, don't dismiss it of she's just hormonal. Please truly understand the whole being that is in front of you. and how everything that she consumes or not consume is affecting her, which is my takeaway every time that I have a conversation with you. And right, how just because you have a uterus, you get to be dismissed quite often, not just from family members because we have made it a joke now, but also the medical system because they, especially here in the US, now that it's better, but especially here in the US, where there's not a lot of education when it comes to this topic.
Yeah. And we didn't really address it, and it could be a whole other thing because I'm currently obsessed with it right now. But the impact the menstrual cycle has on autism and ADHD, right? The research that's coming out is remarkable. And so not only are we being dismissed by family and medical system, but I think we're dismissing ourselves.
Yeah.
Because, I have sensory processing disorder, and I can tell you literally 25 hours or 24 hours before my period starts, I cannot stand my clothes. I can tolerate my clothes the rest of the month, and the second I hit my door after the day's done, I'm stripping because I can't tolerate my clothes. And I was like, oh yeah, periods in 24 hours, cool. And that's the thing, researchers backing that. And so I think all of us, even if you're like, yeah, I only work with this, neurodivergent population, it impacts them greatly.
Yeah.
And it impact at least half, right? Half of us present with a uterus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of the other demographic pieces that you put on your clinical practice, unless it's strictly testosterone coming through that door, this is going to be applicable information.
Yes.
Again, the smiles are just like priceless. So, oh God, how do we end? Because this is like, I don't want it to end, and I'm aware of the time. So, how do we end this? What would be one nugget, Jessica, that you want everyone who's in mental health to take from this? Besides reaching out to you for consultation and not pay with hot chocolate, I insist they need to pay the full fee. You are worth it.
If there was one thing I would ask, have everyone ask themselves, can I confidently describe the menstrual cycle and the impact it has on a body? And if the answer is no, then go do some research.
By the way, the answer will always be no. Because after I took that presentation, I'm like, I have no idea. So the answer is
and we have them. And we have them. I think that is the other takeaway is like, this has been a generational disservice that we don't talk about menstrual cycles. We don't talk about the effects of hormones on the body other than just saying like a woman is being moody because she's on her cycle, right? So one, I want to extend grace. Like, yes, you do not know. You don't know. I don't know. And the next step then is to like pick up the ball and do the research and do the readings so that you do know. These are the bodies that we live in. These are the bodies that our clients are living in. We do need to be aware of that and take it upon ourselves to do some of this information gathering. And I'm going to go back and look at our own intake paperwork and go, do we ask about hormones and birth control specifically? Because I don't know that we do. And I think that now is very, very important for us to help them track and also to help link that, when your symptoms flare, perhaps there is another biological component to this.
Look at us changing the world. I love this. Thank you, Jessica, for being here. I really, honestly, whenever you want to come back and talk more, I'm going to be sending you more emails, but whenever you want to come back and talk more about this, please do so. We know so little and we need you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Maria?
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And then until next time, guys, we'll leave Jessica's information below so that you can find her and find her favorite hot chocolates. And then we'll connect next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye.